Hey everyone. Well, let me get my shades on first. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fusing Shop. My name is Sim, and I will be your glass teacher on this glass blowing journey. Today we'll be making what we call a galaxy marble. And this marble is pretty awesome if I do say so myself. So if you do like marbles, I highly recommend sticking around to check out this video because you are going to love the way this marble comes out. Now, what I'm going to be using is some clear tubing and some clear rods. And right now I just closed down that clear tube. I'm going to use that clear tube to encase my opal. We'll be using an opal in this project as well. My first video I used an opal chip. This one I'm using a round one. Boom, there it is, looking all opal-y in the tube there. And the first thing we're going to do is encase this opal in clear glass. These are synthetic opals that we use for glass blowing because they are compatible with glass. And I know that this opal will not crack or shatter my piece when it's done annealing. Someone asked me if you could use natural opals. As far as I know, you cannot use natural opals with borosilicate glass. If you guys have tried it and have been successful, I'd be thrilled to hear how that worked out for you. Please leave a comment below. But as far as I know, you cannot use natural opals with borosilicate glass. So what I am doing now is condensing down that clear glass and encasing that round opal in clear. We need to make sure that the opal is encased first before we use it to get it to stick to the glass. And we're going to be applying this to the lens of our galaxy marble. And when you apply it to the lens, it looks like a planet, like hovering in the galaxy. And it just looks super awesome. People, just stick around to the end, and I'm going to show you guys how this marble came out. I made a big mistake in my first video where I did a galaxy marble and I did not show the marble at the end. Big new mistake on my part. And I have thus learned, and I think that was like 3 years ago already that I made that video, which is pretty crazy when I think about it. But yeah, so I have learned from my mistakes, and you will be seeing the completed marble at the end of this video. Right now you can see that opal is sitting in the clear, and I have like a chunk on the left side of it, and I'm gonna go ahead and remove that now. You want like a thin layer of clear around the opal. You don't want to like have it too much globby glass around it. You want that just nice smooth layer right over it. I'm going to show you guys in a second what it looks like. Just bear with me here. It's looking pretty good. Boom, there you go. Encased in a nice layer of clear. And now we are going to do some fuming. There's a tiny dot of silver, pure silver, right on my clear rod. And all you need is like a tiny drop of it. And I'm gonna fume that silver onto this clear rod that I have. I like to pre-warm the rod. Some people say go in cold and fume that way. I like to preheat. I think this makes the fume stick better. But to each their own. This is how I do it, and it works for me. And what I'm doing now, I preheated that, just wave that silver in the fire real quick to give it a little bit of heat. This way it doesn't pop off on me. And now I just put it in the cones of the flame. And you can see the blue and yellow hues beginning to form. Oh, teenage alert, teenage alert. There's one of my teens visiting me in the shop. Always appreciate having visitors come in. Now you can see how it looks kind of like shiny and kind of polarized, and you can see the yellow and the blue in there, and a whole bunch of other colors, which is pretty cool. That's what I love about fume, is you always get different results, and there are people that could fume way better than I can. I am by no means an expert at fuming, but I do have a little bit of knowledge, and I'm happy to share what I know with you guys. And right now what I'm going to do is encase that fume in clear to protect it, because if you go back into the flame without encasing it with some clear glass, you will burn off that fume. So you want to encase it in clear, and that will preserve that color that you have just put down. Encasing seems to be the word of the day. We encase the opal, now we're encasing the clear. Later we'll be encasing more stuff. Stay tuned for all the encasing going on today. So what I'm doing now, like I said, laying down that clear over the fume. And this is one of my favorite things to do, is encasing clear glass. It's just so satisfying when the glass is hot and flowing smooth. It's like magic putting it down. And the way I do it is I keep the tip nice and hot, and I kind of heat where the elbow of the glass is, not like the tip of the glass, because you're going to touch that down to the rod and then it'll make like an L shape, and you want to heat like the bend where it bends and a little bit beyond the bend. Even though that sounds like it wouldn't work, it actually keeps the glass hot and moving, because most people don't know where to put the heat. Now, what I tell my students is one of the key things of glass blowing is knowing where to put the heat. And once you know where to put the heat, the glass just flows so much smoother. Oh, right now Cotton Eye Joe came on my MP3 player. It's always nice to also listen to music while you do an activity like this. It just helps bring out the creativity and helps it just changes the whole energy of the shop when you have some music going in the background. Choose whatever kind of music you guys like. I like 70s, 80s music, rock and roll, that kind of good stuff. Cotton Eye Joe does not fit into that, but it is still a rockin' tune, and I still think it's awesome. So I think it's a great song for glass blowing. And I'm pretty much done with the encasing. And what I'm going to do now is we need to melt all that glass nice and smooth and even. There we go. You can see the blues and the yellows in there. And we're going to see how that changes over time. Now, the main goal we're trying to achieve now is to melt all of those clear lines nice and smooth into one unified piece of glass. So we're going to be fusing all that glass together. Like the name of the fusing shop, we're going to be fusing all that glass together, or welding it, whichever term you want to use, or melting it down. There's so many terms for the same thing. And I usually like to start at those little knobs at the end, because if you're going to get a stress crack, it's going to happen where you do all those flame cuts at the end of the, that end of the piece there that I have in the flame right now. So I'm going to put some extra time into working that. And also that's where the glass is also the thickest and going to take the longest to melt down. So I'm going to put some heat in there, make sure that glass looks nice and happy and everything looks nice and smooth and now I'm going to move on to the middle of that piece. And don't be afraid if the glass starts to feel a little noodly in your hands and all wobbly. Your goal is to keep that glass as steady as you can while you keep it as ripping hot as possible. That's the way that the glass really starts to fuse together and it really starts to become one homogeneous blob of goodness. So stabilize your hands as much as you can. Keep the glass in the fire. If you bounce it in and out of the flame, the glass is not going to melt down and you just kind of be stuck in one spot. So make sure you keep the glass in the fire and keep it super hot. You can see I have almost the whole piece glowing at one time. And it does take practice, and it does feel really weird when that glass is molten in your hands. But, since we're using two hands and we attach that punty on the end, we should be good. So keep that glass in the fire like you see I'm doing here. Make sure to keep everything nice and melty, and that will melt down nice and quickly. And what we're going to do next is pull this out into cane. And you could use cane for so many different projects. You could use it to do... what's that thing called? A coil pot. So you can make like a whole tube with this type of fume cane, or you could use it for what we're going to do here, which is the Galaxy Marble. You could use it for pendants. There's like a million things you could use cane for. You could use it for dot work and for implosions and just tons and tons of different uses. So get that nice and juicy hot, melt all that glass nice and smooth. You can see how all those lines have disappeared, and that's your main goal. You want all those lines to melt down and have one nice smooth fluid piece of glass. And here we go, we're getting ready to pull this out because like I said, the clear has melted down and it has coated the fume. So now our fume is protected and we could give it the full blast of the flame without having to worry about it burning off. I have removed the glass from the fire to start the pulling. I don't pull the glass in the flame, I pull it out of the flame. Even now you can see it's still out of the fire as I twist it and pull it into that cane. And there's enough residual heat in there. I do dip it back into the flame every now and then, but there is enough heat in that glass that you can continue to pull it and stretch it and twist it and keep it relatively uniform as you're doing that. I'm not going to use this whole piece of cane. I'm actually going to save one piece for future projects and one piece I'm going to use for this marble. So now I'm heating the mass. Where the glass is thickest is where you want to put the heat at this point. You don't want to put it where it's thin or you're going to wind up cutting the glass, and that's not what you want to do right now. You want to just keep pulling out that cane, or if you do want to do that right now, that's, you know, by all means, whatever makes you happy. But I'm going to keep pulling it out. And there my punty broke off, and that is normal because that was a cold seal punty and that was not fully welded on properly. So that's no problem. I'm just letting that glass hang down and letting gravity pull that glass straight for me. And I just hit the camera because it's very close to where I'm working. Now I just cold sealed that back on, and now I'm going to continue to do what I was doing before, heating up the mass where it's the thickest because that's what's going to take the most heat to move, and continuing to pull it out and stretch that glass. You can see, keeping the fire right in that one spot. And now what I'm going to do is flame cut this because I had a nice piece of cane and I had a nice amount of usable glass in my right hand. That's enough to do our marble. I'm back. I did cut out me walking back and forth to the kiln so you guys do not have to watch my fine buttocks going back and forth. Saves you guys time, and you know, life is all about what you do with your time and how you spend your time and invest your time. And I do appreciate you taking your time to watch this video, and I cut out all the stuff that is not necessary to learn all the proper techniques to do this marble. So I hope you guys appreciate that. If you do, please smash that like button, you know, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Here we go. I'm going to pull out a little bit more. Eventually my punty breaks off again and I just give up and just start shaping the marble. I'll just give you guys a spoiler. And that happens again when you cold seal stuff on, and a cold seal is when you only have one piece of glass hot and it's not fully fused together and it's easy to break off. And there we go. It just happened again. No big deal. I'm just going to go and roll with it now. And what I'm going to do is start smushing that glass and twisting it even more than it's twisted already. So I'm going to smush, pull, twist, smush again, and make it as random and as chaotic as I can. And the more you do this, the cooler the effect looks in the glass when we're done. The marble is going to look super awesome when we're done with this. Now, while I am doing that, see, here we go. I'm pulling that glass out and folding it over and putting that heat back in and giving some twists. And while I'm doing that, let's do today's dad joke for the video. And that's going to be, why did the chicken coop only have 2 doors? Because if it had 4, it would be a sedan. Gotta love the dad jokes. If you have any dad jokes of your own, then please share them in the comments. I do love dad jokes. Again, being a dad myself, I do appreciate them. And I do appreciate telling them to my kids. So, okay, so you can see how nice and twisty that's getting. Now I'm flame cutting. Make sure you use the fire to flame cut your glass. And I think that looks so freaking cool. It looks kind of like a little statue, like an abstract statue at that point. And you could actually just stop here and anneal this and have that cool little whatever it is. Right now I'm sitting and chilling with my rod with my elbow resting on the table. You want to try to rest your elbows as much as you can because this can get very tiring holding the glass, your arms out in front of you in this position for a prolonged period of time. So you want to try to use as many, you know, cheats as, I wouldn't even call them cheats, but techniques as you possibly can to keep your arms steady and, you know, keep as much weight off of it as you can, because the glass, even though it's not a lot of glass that we're moving right now, it does get heavy over time. and I have tons of people in the shop that have to like stop and I have to put their projects in the kiln because they get so tired from spinning just one ball of piece of glass for so long. And I happen to do everything with my right hand. I do know how to rotate also with my left, and glass does teach you to be ambidextrous because you need two hands to do it. Right now I'm letting gravity pull that glass back on center because it got a little bit off kilter. And that's okay. It happens to everyone. You know, I'm not perfect, and my glass work is by no means even near perfect. And what I'm going to do now is wrap a strip of cobalt blue around the equator of the marble, which is about the halfway point. So I'm going to go heat up the tip of that blue, get it nice and juicy hot. The marble is cool enough where it's not going to deform now. So keep it out of the flame as you do this, because if you start to deform it, it'll lose all of that roundness that you have achieved on it already. And since this is a marble, we do want it to be round, so make sure you keep it out of the fire. This way you don't mess up the shape. Okay, so now I got my strip laid down. What I'm going to do now is just fill in the rest of the pattern. It's kind of like coil potting around the outside, or as I said before, encasing it in blue right now. As we said, encasing is the magic word of this video. So we're going to go ahead and slowly wrap that around, keeping, like I said before, the marble out of the fire, and we just want that cobalt blue rod in the flame, keeping that molten and tacking it down onto the marble. And this is going to give really make the fume pop. Like cobalt and silver fume really make an amazing color combination. And when we look in the galaxy at the end, you're gonna see how that blue really makes that silver fume pop so much, and it's just so awesome. So this is like one of my favorite projects to make, and I'm really happy to be redoing this video for you guys. Okay, so there we go, flame cut, put that down. Always put your hot ends facing away from you. And I do have a rod rest off camera. You don't want to put your rods down on the table because they do pick up dust and debris and all that other crud that's around the shop. So make sure that you do use a rod rest. This way it's off the surface, unless you plan on cleaning your glass every time you pick it up. All right, so now we got the backer in place and we are rocking along with this marble. And if you have stuck with me so far, thank you so much for, joining me on this marble making journey. And if you have any questions about this process or any of my techniques, please feel free to leave those in the comments. I am very responsive with my viewers, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys. So thanks so much for being a supporter of the Fusing Shop channel. Okay, what I was just doing there is I was measuring which divot I was going to use for the marble mold, and you want to use the cutaway that is smaller than the marble you are making, because the glass will ride on the edge of the mold and that will give it its final rounding. You do like 90% of the rounding with the fire, but the last 10% is done with the marble mold, and that's where you can really feel if the marble is round. And an interesting thing about marble making in general is it's easy to make a marble, but making one round does take a lot of practice. There we go. So before I go into the mold, I do wait at least like 3 or 4 seconds. This way that glass stiffens up, because if you go into the mold while it's ripping hot, that glass will get like a divot on the bottom, I guess you'd call it, because it like sinks into the mold because it's still molten glass. So you want to let that glass harden up for a couple seconds. And you can see how nice and round that looks, looking nice and beautiful. That's going to be popped in the kiln while we work on the opal now. I know we already worked on the opal, but what we're going to do now is transfer the opal to a clear rod. Now this is a brand new rod that I just cut, and I always flame cut off the end. This way I have a nice clean end that I'm working with. And this one actually had some dust on it or something, so there's a bunch of air bubbles and I wanted to peel those off. So I took off a big chunk of glass there. Boom, throw that in your little pot. Any imperfections that are on your glass when you put it into the flame will stay there. So try to remove any dust particles and any dirt before you put the glass in the fire, because that will make air bubbles and other stuff. And you might not want that, or you may want that. You know, I did get some air bubbles in the end of this piece, which, you know, I think it actually makes it look cooler. But ultimately, if you want to have super clean glass, you want to eliminate as many air bubbles as you possibly can. What I just did there was I fused the opal onto the rod. So it was actually on a piece of tubing, the tubing that I used to encase it in the beginning. And now I just transferred it to that clear rod. And now it's fused in there. So now it's one solid piece. And this is going to be the rod we use to make the lens. And the lens is really going to magnify the fume effect that we put in there. And what I'm doing here is I'm getting ready to make a punty, and I'm sharpening up the end. I think about it like sharpening a pencil, where I get the tip nice and hot. And then I use my Elmarver to put the glass in at an angle, and then rotate my hand up, and you get a very nice point, kind of like a pencil. And we do this so we have as little surface area in contact. See how nice that looks? And there we go. That's what it looks like so far. And we're going to use that cobalt blue to attach to that blue backer. And this is going to ensure that we don't leave any unwanted marks, because we're using the same glass, the same color as we did before. And we have to flame cut this. Now, to flame cut, I know I didn't go over this, but if you watch my other videos, I flame cut all the time, and I've even in this video itself, I did a million of them. So hold your glass in the flame in one spot, gently pull those hands apart, the glass starts to taper. Where that glass starts to thin out, dip it back into the flame. Keep it there until they pop apart, boom, just like that. And I did have a couple bubbles that I picked off the end. And that looks great. You can see that fume looks really cool already. And this part of the marble is done. Now the next step that we're going to do is drop the opal onto that fumed piece. And then make a huge gather of clear with the opal, and that will make the lens that we're going to view the marble through. So you can see that fume, it kind of looks like a tornado in there. Boom, get this on. You want to make a hot seal, which means sticking both pieces of glass together while they are glowing the same color. In this case, they're glowing like a nice bright orange. And it should be a seamless connection between the two. And then I'm going to start feeding the clear into the marble. So what we do, it's kind of like pushing a Maria. Just gently push your hands together, and I'm pushing the clear into the marble. I'm not pushing the marble into the clear. The marble is out of the flame right now. Just the clear rod is in the fire, and I'm pushing that in to make that lens. And you could see in certain shots that the opal is spinning around in there. There it is. You can see it right now. It's coming back up to the top. And that's going to be the planet in our galaxy. All right, so now that we have enough clear on there, I'm doing another flame cut to cut that off. And boom, pop those apart. When you flame cut again, like I said before, you want to use the fire to cut your glass. If not, the glass will continue to pull out thinner and thinner and thinner. It makes these thin little angel-like hairs. And those snap very easily, and they are dangerous to breathe in and have around your shop, because they could get some nasty splinters. And if you ever got a splinter from glass, then you will know they are so freaking painful. And they are really hard to see because it's clear and tiny. So just avoid doing it. Don't pull stringers, and all will be good. So right now, I'm just going to round off this, and we are like about 60% done with this marble already. It's really just shaping and rotating and shaping. I guess that's really it. See, that looks really wonky right now, and that's fine. Taking a look in the galaxy to see how it looks. Just in the torch, making sure we got the right type of flame. There we go. Get back in the fire. We're gonna have to reattach after we finish, because we added so much clear glass that the blue side we rounded off before will have to be rounded again. So that's gonna go in the kiln because my GoPro died. Now I remember what happened. The GoPro died. Like so many things went wrong with this video, guys, and it was really annoying to get. And I had to like stop halfway through to reset the GoPro and reset my other camera because I use multiple cameras to do the recording. So I had to reset everything and put the marble in the kiln and then get it back out. And it's just a big pain. Doing these videos is a huge pain. So if you guys, again, like I said before, can just hit that like button and subscribe and share it and all that good stuff, because I do put a ton of effort into this. Even now, as I'm doing the voiceover, people have walked in the room like 3 times already, so I had to just, keep stopping and restarting. So share some of that love, because, that's what life is all about sharing and teaching others and helping others and building community. And, that's what I love about this channel, because I get to share what I know with a much larger audience than I do with people who come in the shop. So I do love teaching, and I do love showing what I know. What I'm doing right now is attaching a cold seal punty to the top, to the clear, and I'm going to crack off the blue, and that cracked off nice and smooth for me. And anytime you crack off a cold seal, it always leaves a scar mark behind. So you need to use the fire to melt that down, or else it's going to, be very obvious in your end piece that you did not do that. So take the couple seconds, melt that glass nice and smooth. And like I said before, I have to rework this blue because I added so much clear that it changed the proportions. And now I need to even it back out so that the cobalt side is nice and smooth, because the clear was much bigger. So now we need to even it out. And again, the way we do that is keep that tip of the glass in the fire. I'm using an elbows down position to let gravity pull that glass down. Now what I have here is called the neutral position, where the glass is parallel to the floor or your workbench. And this is borosilicate glass that we're working with, so it does take time to move. And we're moving a large amount of it right now. So you have to give it time and heat to make it do what you need it to do. So don't be in a rush. There's no rush. Just take your time. Be patient. I love that. It looks like a ball of molten fire right now. Just a glowing ball of fire. And if you drop it, you will know that it is a glowing ball of fire. If that touches anything, my work table is fireproof, but if it does fall on clothing or anything, then they will instantaneously catch fire. So you got to be really careful with this stuff, people. You don't want that to happen. There was one guy I had in the shop who he dropped his project on his clothes, and I had to like pat him out because his clothes caught fire. I also do have a fire extinguisher. But let's just avoid doing that. Now I'm going to roll in the mold. That's already looking amazing. Again, pick the one that is smaller than the marble you're making. This one is a pretty big marble, so I'm using the biggest size in my marble mold. And wait a couple seconds, then rotate, then rotate your mold like 90 degrees up. And that'll help smooth out all of those rough edges and really give a nice round finish to the marble. My punty was a little bit off, and normally I crack them off and reseal them, but I didn't do that in this case. In this case, I'm just using a little bit of heat and letting gravity pull it back on center for me. Back into the fire. I work only half the marble at a time when I make a marble. So I worked on the cobalt half and then the clear half. Now I'm back to the cobalt half, and then I'm going to go back to the clear half after we break off this punty, just to do, like I said, a final shaping and fire polish and make sure everything looks nice and smooth. For pretty much almost the rest of this video, it's going to be rounding the marble. So I'm just going to be quiet and let you guys enjoy the glass blowing and just listen to the music. And I'll be back near the end to check in. And I'm back. The last step is to crack off that putty and flame polish off the scar mark that it left. And of course it left a nice large chunk for me, because why not? Everything else went wrong with this video. Why not leave a large piece of the putty on the marble on top of it? So just put the flame, I got it in the mold now, and now I'm just dipping where that high point is into the fire. And this will melt down relatively quickly, as long as you did not leave a large amount of glass on the end. And that is also part of the practice and the skill, is to leave as little glass behind as possible, where it shouldn't need too much fire to round it out. And what I like to do is just use a clear rod. That's a cool, because you don't want it to stick now, because if you stick it, it's going to make another putty that you have to crack off and redo this process. So make sure the rod is cool before you, and make sure the marble is also cool, because you can make a cold seal. And the reason I do this is to make sure I really got all that glass melted in. And if it doesn't rotate smoothly in the mold, then you miss some glass and need to reheat. It's going to go in the kiln to anneal. Thanks so much for checking out the video, and we'll see you in the next one. I'm just kidding. Here is the marble, guys. It came out fantastic. I love how it looks. I hope you guys do too. If you do, please leave a comment below, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.